Easter is really important for followers of Jesus. But why? Especially if you don't personally hold a Christian faith, you might be wondering, does Easter even matter? Other than for my kids hoping to get a big haul of chocolate, why is Easter important? Well, I'd love to take a moment to unpack with you why I believe Easter is important for all of us. Easter centers around the word hope. Hope is incredibly important in our lives. In the most basic sense, it's a belief that something good can happen. Hope is like a very small light in a very dark room. It's a place to turn our attention to look at, despite the darkness, despite the unfamiliarity, despite the uncertainty that surrounds us. Our world can be a very dark place. There's much uncertainty. There's much suffering going on around us, and our heart, it breaks at the darkness of our world. As I film this, we've just come through 2 years of a global pandemic. People have lost ones that they loved. Others have lost moments and experiences that they'd long dreamed of. We've just seen the barbaric invasion of Ukraine by Russia. Millions of people fleeing for safety and refuge. Our heart, it breaks at the darkness in our world. But deep down in our heart, we long for hope. So we start to look for hope in the apparent light of things. Some of them are good, some of them are bad, many of them are just indifferent. So we will look for hope in the apparent lights of finding a relationship, finishing school, getting a new job, or buying a new purchase, only to find that when we get there, that they flicker and fade, and the search for true hope goes on. And that is why I believe, as a follower of Jesus, that Easter is so important for all of us. If you'd allow me to read one verse from the Bible, and if you've got questions on, can I really trust the Bible? We've got a great resource that we're going to link to in the description. This comes from the Gospel of John. It says in John chapter 1, verse 5, it says this about God, about Jesus. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. This is why I believe Easter is so important for all of us, because in it we reflect and we see that God, He sees the darkness in our world, the darkness in our heart, and He has chosen to step into our story and shine His light. If you don't believe in God, just for a moment, let's accept that there was a God of the universe, an all-powerful God. Surely this God would want to use His power to do and get whatever He wanted. You see, the God of the Bible that's reflected in the Easter story is painted in a very different picture. Because we see that God, as Jesus, He sees the darkness in our world and He steps down from heaven into our story. Jesus is born as a baby. We celebrate that at Christmas time. But Jesus grows up and He shows us a different way to live our life, a better way to live our life. It's centered around love, loving one another. And Jesus, that love, it motivates Him on Good Friday to lay down His life for us. Jesus is crucified by selfish, prideful people. But Jesus in that moment chose that. He chose in that moment to take all our sin, all our shame, all our wrong choices, the weight of our past onto Himself so that we could experience a fresh start. We could truly have an opportunity to experience God's love in our life. If Jesus stays dead, we remain without hope. But it says on Easter Sunday that Jesus rose again, that death could not hold Him, that Jesus rose again. That is great news for us. In other words, the Easter story is a message for us that hope is alive. That even in the darkest moments of our life, in the hardest moments of our story, that there is a light, there is a hope for us to cling on to, that the darkness can never overcome. The cross, it shows God's love for you and for me. And the empty cross, and we should always see the cross as empty. It's a reflection, a message, whether you have hope, whether you have a faith or not, that hope is alive. I would love to invite you to explore a little bit more about Easter and a little bit more about the hope that is found in following Jesus. why don't you go to thec3.uk, or you can follow us, The C3 Church, on Facebook or Instagram.
If you enjoyed this video today, why don't you click subscribe and click on that notification bell to get a notification the next time we upload a video. And if you're new or you've been coming to the C3 Church for a little while now, why don't you find out what your next step might be in the journey of faith? Click on the next step link in the description below to find out what your next step in your journey might be.